And great. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our program today. Our program is 8 simple steps to a healthier heart. If you have questions, put them into the chat and I'll take a look as we move along, or I'll get to them at the end, but put them in there. And the topic is 8 simple steps to a healthier heart. I'm Trisha, your nutritionist. For the next 30 minutes we have together, there's a lot of information to pack into that time. I'm also a coach, a fitness and yoga instructor, and an author. And you can find out more about me at trishasilverman.com. Let's move along and get the party started. All right. So the first thing that we can do to help our hearts is to manage weight. And over the years, many people have said things to me like, well, my family is overweight, or, my family has heart disease, so there's not much I can do. And I really beg to differ with that. I remember my grandmother saying, we're big in our family. We're all big boned. And I look back and, we were eating, lemon cake and real heavy cheese kinds of foods. And when I look back, I can see that the way that the family was eating was contributing and very sedentary. And I changed that over time for my own life because I saw that you can make a difference. And I love this saying from the Mayo Clinic. So I have the question, are the size of my genes, Geans, determined by my genes, Genes? The Mayo Clinic says that genes may set the stage for overweight or obesity, but your body weight is ultimately determined by your diet and physical activity, meaning that we can take control. If everyone in your family had a heart attack in their 50s, you're not destined to have that because you can take control of your environment. And, what you put in your mouth and how you move can make a huge difference. All right. So let's move along and we'll talk about some weight busters. What I have found that can work really well, and there's all different ways to lose weight, is to log your food. There are apps like Lose It, LOSEIT, and MyFitnessPal, where you can enter your food. Noom is another one. You can enter your food and you can really see what a budget of calories looks like. And working with the dietitian in conjunction is really best because I find that those apps sometimes really underestimate your needs. And when you work with a dietitian, we can figure out kind of that sweet spot where you have enough calories to feel good, feel energized, you're not starving, and you get to achieve your goals. So I work with a lot of people to determine their budgets, and then they log their food into an app like Lose It or MyFitnessPal, and then they start to realize how, that even they may be eating all healthy food, but maybe just too much. I get that a lot. I don't know what I'm doing. I hear people say I eat really healthy food. It may just be too much. As we age, we need less calories. And the calories we take in as we age need to be real high quality so that we feel our best, so we're energized. So logging your food is a wonderful tool. It's not the only tool, and it doesn't have to be your tool, but it's a tool that's out there. And if you're struggling with weight, maybe that's the tool to try. And especially in conjunction with someone that's helping you, is really an awesome way to do it, an awesome partnership. Another thing we can do is plan and prep our food. So with many of my clients, I recommend a planning power hour. So over the weekend, you plan what your menu will be, when you'll shop, when you'll cook, and then what days you'll do your fitness on. And having a plan can really help out. Now, one of the things that is super helpful, especially for people that are busy and work, batch cooking. So what that means is, let's say on Sunday night, we make a batch of a whole grain or potatoes. So maybe it's brown rice. I just experimented with whole grain farro recently, and that's really, very yummy, chewy, wonderful texture. So a whole grain, so let's say brown rice, a protein like chicken, and then let's say a vegetable like broccoli, and you make a big batch of each of those on Sunday. That's good for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Generally 3 days. It's really good and safe to eat. Sometimes you can get as much as 4, but I like the 3-day rule. So now you cooked Sunday. That means Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you can pull from that. And then each day you can flavor it a little bit differently to make the most of it. So maybe it's an Italian seasoning that first day. You do garlic and onion and maybe some oregano and maybe some thyme and basil. And then maybe the following day, maybe you give it a Cajun seasoning, and then maybe the following day it's Mexican or Asian seasoning. And we can really change it up to make the food not feel like leftovers. The food will feel like you batch cooked, and now you're just eating a really tasty meal. Now, I mentioned planning your fitness is very helpful as well. The current guidelines in the US are 150 minutes per week of moderate intense or 75 minutes of vigorous exercise, spread out ideally throughout the week. And for more health benefits, you may need more than that. So even greater health benefits are when you do 300 plus minutes. Weight loss may be even more than that. But if you're sedentary, just doing any movement is better than no movement. And then the guidelines also say twice a week to work out each major muscle group of your body. So that can be through weights, it can be resistance bands, it can be yoga, it could be digging and working in your yard. So twice a week is what's recommended. And that's all real baseline. If you're not there, we want to get there and then maybe improve from that. So something to think about. Okay. Now, finding coping mechanisms other than food, super helpful. Breathing and meditation are really big, and those can make a huge difference in helping you deal with any issues around food. If you're doing any emotional eating, we can slow down, tune into our breath, and take a few deep breaths. And it's really a wonderful way to handle stress. Now, one app that I love is Insight Timer, INSIGHT Timer. So you may want to look that one up. Has thousands of free meditations, and there's all kinds of beautiful meditations on there. I posted one on Facebook that I found last week. One of them I found, it had positive affirmations. So you're meditating and you hear just really positive messages. The opposite of maybe when you hear the news, right? This is the opposite. Now you're planting beautiful, wonderful affirmations. I feel strong. I feel, I am calm. Real nice things that can calm you down and just make you feel good. So if you're not using meditation and mindfulness, maybe this is the year, 2023 is the year of mindfulness for you. And then consistency is key. So maybe you want to say, okay, I'm going to do batch cooking once a week, every week, or I'm going to make 2 new recipes a month. And then every month you try 2 new recipes. That has helped people too to stay on their healthy eating plan by trying new healthy recipes, because it makes eating healthy fun and really flavorful. Okay. Now, the other thing that we want to think about is practicing portion control and mindful eating. So a food scale may be helpful, smaller plates, smaller cups and spoons. So you see, I'm holding up here, I have several different kinds of spoons. So measuring spoons, so if one gets dirty, I have a backup one. And then same thing with measuring cups. I have a lot available, so it's really easy to just measure out my portion of that farro or the brown rice. I can do that real easily. And then I have other sets available if these get dirty. And then food scales are helpful because we often say the size of your chicken portion, about 3 to 4 ounces, the size of your palm. What if you have a gigantic palm, right? So if you have a food scale, it can really help you to see for real what that 3 to 4 ounces looks like. And then we want to practice mindful eating. So mindful eating is getting rid of distractions, not eating while you're on the phone or on the computer doing your work. We want to turn away from the computer. Can you get away to a break room and really enjoy your food? And then at home, try eating in the kitchen or dining room and not eating in front of the TV. So mindful eating, for many people, it can make a huge difference. I remember I was doing a program um, at the Army, and the employees that came to that program, there was one that we were doing a several week program, and we talked about mindful eating one week, and the following week, this participant came in and he said that he lost 4 pounds in the week. And I said, how'd you do that? What'd you do? And he said, I just didn't eat with the TV. It was as simple as that. So sometimes these little simple things can make a huge difference in your health. Okay, so let's talk about food that support heart health. So the foods that truly are so super healthy for heart health: plant foods, fiber-rich foods. Ideally, we aim for 30 grams a day of fiber from food, and that helps with cancer protection as well. And you'll see on the next slide, we have specific guidelines for you based on how much you're eating and based on age and gender. So fiber is associated with eating enough fiber, lower weight, lower blood pressure, lower blood sugars, lower cholesterol, and a lower risk for diabetes, heart disease, stroke, and cancer. To boost your fiber intake, we want to make sure we're consuming fruits, vegetables, beans, whole grains, nuts, and seeds. Really important to get the plants in. 90% of Americans aren't getting enough vegetables and 80% not getting enough fruit. So we want to make sure those in particular that we're getting them in. And then beans are chock full of fiber. So these beans right here, when I look at the fiber percentage, 21% on here. And I'm going to stop sharing for a moment and just show you up close. So you can see here on the label, when you look right there, that 21% in this percent column, 20% or more means high, 5% or less means low, and then 10% means a significant source of. So we know these are high in fiber. They happen to be black beans, but lentils, cannellini beans, all kinds of beans, wonderful for your health. Okay, let me share again, and we will move along and just talk about fiber amount in a little more detail. So there are two ways to figure out fiber. One is by the dietary guidelines, and the other is by the National Academies of Science. So the dietary guidelines say 14 grams for every 1,000 calories that you eat. So if you're logging your food on MyFitnessPal and it says you eat 2,000 calories a day, it would be 14 for the first 1,000, 14 for the second 1,000, 28 grams. And then below, you'll see where it says adult females up to 50 years of age, 21 grams, adult males, 38, females 51 and over, 21 grams, and then males 51 and over, 30 grams. And that's because as we age, we need less food and less calories. And that's why those amounts go down just a little bit. Okay, number 3, eat healthy fats. And one of them, the fish. So we want to try to get fish in twice a week, 2, 3.5 to 4 ounce servings. That's been shown in research to have it to be associated with a 30 to 40% reduced risk of cardiac events. Okay, now what is helpful if you don't have time to cook fresh fish, the little packets or the cans. And I really like this chicken of the sea, wild pink salmon, and this is the lower sodium, wild caught Star-Kissed brand, light tuna. The light tuna is better than the albacore because it has less mercury. It has a little less omega-3 too, but what you can do is if you like the tuna taste, you can actually just mix the salmon and light tuna together, and you can make a little salad over that, or put a scoop of that over your leafy greens. Leafy greens really helpful for managing weight, lowering your risk for heart disease. So are you getting salads in? But back to the healthy fats, what are we putting on the salad? Hopefully extra virgin olive oil. This happens to be one of my favorite brands. Lucchini. I also like California Olive Ranch is another real nice one. So keep those in mind. And Some other sources of that are high in omega-3s, the salmon, the herring, also Atlantic and Pacific mackerel, but not king mackerel because that's high in mercury. And then anchovies and sardines. And then we have nuts and seeds like walnuts, pumpkin seeds, flax seeds, and oil, chia seeds, and hemp seeds. Nuts and nut butters also great for us. The key to remember is when you add them, take something else out, like maybe take out chips and have nuts instead for a snack. Because when you add nuts, they do have a lot of calories, so they're good for you. They're super good for your health. They're associated with longevity. And, I'll read you a few pieces of research here. But you do want to just keep in mind that the calories can go up. So just, we want to be replacing something else when we add the nuts in. So just you can stay in a good, calorie balance. Okay. The evidence analysis library from the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics has found that 1/2 to 1 cup of nuts daily with the diet low in saturated fat and cholesterol, that's what you find in animal foods, decreased total cholesterol and LDL, that's the bad cholesterol, when weight was not gained. And then other researchers found that consumption of 5 ounces of nuts per week may reduce the risk of heart disease. And then the nut study that led to these results, almonds, walnuts, peanuts, pecans, macadamia, they're all nuts and seeds are great for you. We just want to watch the amounts. So what I like to say is a knuckleful has about 45 calories and a handful has about 180. So you may just want to do a few knucklefuls a day, and that's about 6 almonds, about 4 pecans, a couple of walnuts. That's what you can fit in your knuckles. So you have a built-in measuring device. Okay, let me take a quick look at your questions, and then we will. Let's see. Oh, great. So a question, how do you find a good nutritionist, dietitian? Look on your health plan for sure. Then check out their website to find out more about them to see if you're a good fit, because they all have different specialties. And yeah, so there's a high amount of mercury in certain fish, tilefish, shark, swordfish, and king mackerel are among some of the highest. So yes, so you want to be careful with some of the high mercury containing fish, and salmon is one of the lower mercury containing fish. So thumbs up to salmon. And how do you offset the high sodium in pre-packed tuna and salmon? Look for the ones that have lower sodium amounts. That's, what I would look for. Some of them you can find in specialty stores with the, no salt added. You may want to look for that as well. And then you want to be careful what kind of condiments are you putting with it so that you can keep the overall sodium of that meal low. And then if they added salt, when you see in the label, you can rinse that fish as well and just like beans, rinse them to rinse off some of the excess sodium. And I recommend, so there's a question, do I recommend farmed fish or freshwater? I think wild is best ideally, but you do want to know where it came from. Make sure they're clean waters. But farm still has health benefits. So I don't want you to just say, well, I can't get wild, it's too expensive, so I'm not going to eat fish. That's not the message. You still, you want to get your fish in and see if it's responsibly farmed. Like Whole Foods, for example, they promote more responsibly farmed fish. So great questions, everyone. All right, let me continue. Lots more to share. All right, go here. Okay. So your nuts, put them over salads, have them as part of trail mixes, the Elvis sandwich, right? Peanut butter and banana, or peanut butter and strawberry sandwich on whole grain bread, but have veggies on the side for sure. Okay. Number 4 is follow the Mediterranean diet. It's a diet low in saturated fat. The fat's between about 30 to 40% of the diet, mostly in the form of extra virgin olive oil. Also, nuts and seeds make up that fat percentage. It's high in the complex carbs, the plant foods we spoke about, whole grains, beans, fruits, and vegetables, and then low to moderate in dairy intake And when you're doing dairy, I like Greek yogurt, has a great amount of protein. So that's one nice yogurt. This is Faye brand, 0%, one of my favorites. And then Mediterranean diet, a moderate to high intake of fish, low to moderate intake of poultry and eggs, and limited red meat. That's really key to remember. And here's a picture of the Mediterranean diet, lots of color like we spoke about earlier. So you want to eat the rainbow. Notice below a lot of movement. We do want to limit the alcohol. That can raise your triglycerides. I know there's some talk about, with the Mediterranean diet and alcohol, but overall, what I find when I work with people, most of them need to reduce their alcohol. So it's something to think about. The limits are 1 drink a day for women and 2 for men. And the drink is about 5 ounces of wine, 12 ounces of a regular type of beer, and 1.5 ounces of a spirit. So that's the amounts. Okay. Number 5 is limit foods that are associated with heart disease. So we want to eat more of a plant-based diet, more plants, less animals. What does that mean? Well, we want to be careful. You still want to decrease that full fat dairy. The evidence is still leaning toward going low fat. I know a lot of people don't like to hear that, but that's where most of the evidence is there. Not the internet evidence, when you look at evidence-based research, okay? We want to limit red meat, limit butter. Red meat is associated with cancer, heart disease, earlier mortality. That means dying sooner. I want you all to live till you're well over 100 years of age so we can still do these Harvard Pilgrim Tufts seminars. Okay, now the research from so let me just say this: replace the red meat with fish, beans, poultry, that 0% fat yogurt that I showed you. The study in 2012 from the Harvard School of Public Health, it found that 1 daily serving of unprocessed red meat, and that's about that 3 to 4 ounces I spoke of earlier, that's associated with the 13% increased risk of mortality. And 1 serving of processed red meat, that's like a hot dog or bacon, that's associated with a 20% increased risk of mortality, earlier mortality. So be careful with the red meat. Okay. Other things we want to be careful with: trans fats. They have been weaned out of, they're supposed to have been weaned out of the food supply, but I still find them occasionally. So that's the partially hydrogenated. You want to avoid that if you see that in the label. Switch to monounsaturated forms of fats, such as extra virgin olive oil, organic canola oil, nuts and nut butters. And then we want to dine out less, because when we dine out, there's a lot of sodium in restaurant food. Sugar, we want to reduce sugar. So sugar has a negative effect on your body from head to toe. It's associated with reduced brain volume, particularly in the hippocampus, which is associated with memory. Sugar can be addictive. It's associated with the metabolic syndrome, so that pre-heart disease type of syndrome. It can raise blood pressure. And most people think, oh, salt raises blood pressure. Sugar does too. It can raise triglycerides. It lowers the HDL, which is the cholesterol that you want to be a little higher. That's the good one. What I say is limit to 0 to 3 teaspoons per day, and 4 grams equals a teaspoon. So you take added teaspoons divided by added sugar grams, divide by 4 to get teaspoons. And the American Heart Association says the limit is 6 teaspoons per day for women and 9 for men. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment and just show you, happy Valentine's Day yesterday, right? Well, in each serving, and it says 5 servings, 5 pieces is a serving, there are 21 grams of added sugar. So you divide by 4, and that's about 5 teaspoons of sugar in a serving. So what I did is, it's not a big box. I added up all together. There's 94.5 sugar grams. Divide by 4, you get 23 teaspoons in just one little box. So let me show you what that looks like. I measured it out. One little box and you're drinking or you're eating almost a whole cup of sugar. Isn't that shocking? So be careful with these little hearts. I'm not saying don't eat them, but you know, maybe a little bit each day, and be careful because these can be addictive. It's just Halloween candy, you know, with in a different box. Okay. All right, let's move along. A couple more things to just show you before we move along. When I mentioned whole grains, I'm talking about brown rice and things like oatmeal, and trying new things maybe you haven't tried before, like millet. That's a great gluten-free grain. Quinoa is another beautiful gluten-free grain. So just some things to think about. If you don't have time, Trader Joe's has a lovely frozen quinoa and a frozen brown rice. So some things to keep in mind. And also potatoes are actually really good for us. They have what's called a resistant starch that is really great for your intestines and for your microbiome. Okay, I'm going to share. We are just, we're almost through, and then we'll see if there are any other questions and take those questions. So number 7 is reduce sodium. Ideally, for most people, limiting to about 1,500 milligrams or less per day. That would be wonderful for your health. Per serving, looking for about 140 milligrams or less per serving when you're looking at the label for cereal, or like I mentioned earlier, 5% or less in the daily percentage item. Avoid the salty 6, so that's breads and rolls and cold cuts, cured meats, pizza, poultry, soup, sandwiches, and other foods like cheese and condiments, frozen dinners, olives, sauces like barbecue sauce. You want to check the label. That is really key. Now, there's also the DASH diet, which stands for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension. If your doctor or dietitian put you on this, it's a great way to lose weight, to reduce your risk for heart disease. Very similar to the Mediterranean diet, features veggies and fruits and whole grains, low fat or fat-free dairy products, fish, poultry, beans, nuts, vegetable oils like the extra virgin olive oil. Then you limit saturated foods. You also limit the tropical oils like coconut, palm, and palm kernel oil, and you limit sugar. How do we make our food taste better? So if we're looking for more flavor with less salt, use fresh herbs and spices. I have a marjoram plant that is, it adds such flavor. Those little teeny leaves, basil. Just experiment with recipes. Lemon, lime, vinegar can all just add real pops of flavor. Choose fresh rather than canned or processed foods. Go with unsalted nuts and or low sodium canned foods. Cook peas and beans from scratch if you can. And then use products that are made without added salt. Look for unsalted broths. Rinse, like we spoke about, rinse your canned items. And then I love sesame seeds for adding that pop of flavor without the sodium. And it gives like a salty type of taste. And then we spoke about the moderation limits for alcohol. A recent study found that moderate drinking may negatively affect your brain. The resveratrol that's in red wine, that's also in red grapes. So I'd rather, as your nutritionist for today, that you eat the red grapes. And then in the Mediterranean region, when wine is enjoyed, it's small amounts and it's with family and food. And it's not someone in isolation slugging down, a Colt 45, in front of Dancing with the Stars. So remember, people and food when we drink alcohol, and small amounts really are key. Okay, I may be dating myself with that Colt 45 reference. All right, so let's see if there are any questions as we wrap up today. And I see, one more question. Great. So Dawn, thank you for your question. The question is honey and maple syrup better sugar substitutes? Well, yes and no. So yes, they are the most natural, especially look for it to be 100% maple syrup. And honey, try to go local if you can, but know that they are still added sugars, so they still can have those deleterious effects on your health. But if you're limiting and you're using, like I mentioned, 0 to 3 teaspoons a day, then small amounts, ideally you would use a more natural type of a sweetener like a honey or a maple syrup. So just keep that in mind and find out what's the smallest amount that'll give you the sweetness you desire. Maybe it's only half a teaspoon that you need. If you're making a salad dressing, let's say a half a teaspoon of maple syrup, maybe it's a full teaspoon, but experiment to figure out how much. Oh, Dawn, thank you for your kind words. I really appreciate that. Any other questions, everyone? We are approaching the end of our seminar. Thank you. I hope that you join us again and have a wonderful and healthy day. And thank you so much to Harvard Pilgrim and Tufts for having us here today. Thank you. Bye, everyone.